Breath out. Now close your eyes. We're going to take two sniffs into the nose and one sigh out. So it's like this.
Okay. All right.
Take a deep breath in and relax.
Yo, Rich, like, can I ask you a quick question very before we begin? What's going on? Like, what are some of the different breathing techniques? Because even I have some of my friends, some of my followers who ask me, like, I love the fact that you guys are doing like these yoga breathing practices before you begin the podcast. It's kind of similar to reminiscent of a kind of prayer before, like like a prayer before you do, your podcast. But is there a particular name for the type of breathing technique that we just did now? This
Well, this
two
breath,
in, one out through
this
the
breath,
mouth.
this breath work. I don't know the name of it. There may be a name for it, but the breath work is really just to help reset the nervous system or activate the
Hmm.
parasympathetic nervous system.
Okay.
That's the aspect of the nervous system that's responsible for calming
Okay.
down. And
Okay.
the other
I
breath
do
that we
feel
do,
much calmer. I do feel much calmer. Yes, I feel much calmer. I'll admit. You know what I'm saying?
okay, good. And the other breath work was breath of fire, and that's a very detoxifying breath.
Yeah.
So, and both of these
In fact,
breath work are scientifically been scientifically studied, and they're proven. Well, I'm gonna say proven, but there's a lot of clinical evidence that show that these have those desired effects. But the Indians
okay.
have been doing this for thousands of years, even before Western science, to elicit certain responses to develop certain inner engineering.
Okay, okay, perfect, perfect, perfect. Okay, no, because I was gonna say yeah, because yeah, I remember the Breath of Fire. You told me even last week. You said we're gonna do Breath of Fire. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people are like, yo, what's going on with those different breathing techniques? They seem pretty cool, but what's the reason behind it? All those things. So yeah, cool. Thanks, I appreciate that. You
Yeah.
really like listed off. One of those curiosities that I had, and at least I can kind of pass it on to some of our friends and some of my followers, saying, yo, we did a Breath of Fire here. We did this one where
Yeah.
we're trying to
Mhm.
reset our nervous system. Things like that. Yeah, thanks, appreciate it.
Well, I think all breath work kind of helps you calm down and reset your nervous system. I think a lot
Okay.
of times we can get kind of caught up in the names and what the intention of it is,
Oh,
but
okay.
the real intention comes from what how much you can rely, how calm you can become, and how neutral you can become. That's
Okay.
always the aim of yoga and breath work is to just try
Okay.
to develop a sense of neutrality and equanimity. So
Okay.
so that is being calm. That is harmonizing with the environment. That is
Okay.
being relaxed, but still present. Not like you're so calm. You're like, oh. No, you're calm, but
Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
you're
Yeah.
still very assertive when need to be. So
Okay. Okay. Perfect. And that assertiveness is very important, though, right? With like saying how you feel. It's like getting across. Saying your thoughts, your feelings. Saying in a non passive aggressive way to try to kind of be assertive, like you said. Try to say how you feel when you feel it, instead of doing it another time where it can be considered as passive aggressive, which is one of those things that which kind of happens when we communicate in our families, right? We kind of find like passive aggressive communications in our families, right? Like I'm like, oh, this cat said this. I'm not gonna say anything right now. I'm gonna be quiet. But when he says something wrong, I'm gonna be on them. You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah.
um, so what do you think about the fact that saying like a lot of times we think that this passive aggressiveness, kind of like feels like it's kind of like I don't know, it's our form of vendetta. You know what I'm saying? Like against our upbringings. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think there is always a lot of passive aggressiveness in any type of relationship.
Okay.
Well, it
Okay.
can be, which because
Okay.
things are not always like the way we communicate is not like a simple A B conversation. It's A with subtext. It's
Mm,
B with
exactly.
past history. It's
Yeah.
it's C with the way you perceive things based on other things that happened to you in the past. So I guess that's kind of like the history between the two people. And and I think and that goes into our topic of like this generational wealth or slash trauma or whatever you want to call it, or just you know we pass those idiosyncrasies along. We can say like we can blame our mom or our dad for like for us. I know especially mom, just really just brought that scarcity mindset in us. Like, save money, don't, just worry
Yeah.
about money all the
Put it on your
time. It's
mattress.
like,
Put it on your mattress. Yeah.
including, but like I'm sure she got that from her parents, and they got it from her parents and stuff like that.
Mm.
And
Okay.
and so that was definitely something. And then I think when it comes to like being passive aggressive with a family member, I think a lot of times sometimes it's just stuff that's built up, and then and then sometimes it's like the straw that breaks the camel back, as our dad would always
Okay.
say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
but
Definitely. Definitely.
I think when it comes to like this we pass along a lot. We pass a lot along with in the family. I think we pass along a lot with anybody we have communication with.
Okay.
In
Okay.
any type of presence with. We're even you don't have to communicate verbally. Just being present with somebody, because when kids are young, what do they do? How do they learn? They mimic.
Mm.
And so,
Yeah. Exactly.
I even noticed myself standing like Dad used to stand when I remember him saying was a kid, because you just mimicking. It's almost it's an
Exactly.
unconscious thing, and and I work with a lot of my clients and stuff like that, and trust me, they all like from their parent. Like I work with like multi generational clients with their kids and sometimes even their grandkids. But most of these kids, clients and their kids, and you'll see that they have a lot of the same asymmetries, the same like problems. Like their left hip might be hurting, or their
Mm.
right knee might be hurting. Both like throughout the family, and maybe it's a genetic thing, or maybe it's kind of like a mimicking thing that you saw your parents stand a certain way for so long that your body start developing that same type of pain in the knee because you've been so asymmetrical for so long. So
Okay.
it's very
So
interesting to see what we pass along. Yeah.
well, that is very interesting what you said. Because I agree with you completely. I think I think that so much of us, because when we were born, from the moment we were born, it's like an influx, a bombardment of information, of stimulus, and things like that is going on. So we're going to try to mimic, see what's going on. And I could say that probably this is the reason. Actually, it's probably possibly because our father was older. Saying when he had us, but why I look at older people, and why I have this, this high standing for older people, because I kind of see like how did they get there? I kind of want to do that. So I think that since we're born, we're always trying to figure out, okay, these people are alive, these beings are alive. So what did they do to stay alive? Compared to my littleness. And we try to
Mhm.
mimic it, like you said. But my question is, all right, so that's interesting that you said that a lot of your clients, especially if you have clients that are two generations, father and son, mother and daughter, father and daughter, mother and son. You find a lot of these asymmetries. You find a lot of these irregularities. And does this also affect their personality?
Well, I think and that's kind of like the study of yogic science. It's like it's like a form of inner engineering, and then, so
Mm.
it's like that's why we go through the poses, because
Okay.
because their belief is that if your body, which is only one aspect of your faculties, you got a physical body, you got a mental body, you got an emotional body, you got a psychological body. They even believe that you have like auras and all that good stuff. So we don't even have to talk about that type of stuff.
So
We can talk
everybody,
we didn't say
okay, go.
everybody. So we're going to talk about the physical body. So if the
Okay.
physical body is misaligned a certain way, it's go,
Okay.
it's going to cause you to react in an imbalanced way, in a certain way. So that's why
Okay.
they do the physical postures to try to bring your body back into alignment, so your personality can be much more balanced and much more aligned.
So
So
does alignment equate to balance? Does it equate to neutrality where you don't have that effect of your parents, of your grandparents, of your great grandparents, of your ancestors? Is that what it means?
well, I think
You know,
neutrality in general, and we use this term called shunya, which means
okay,
zero. The 0 point is that,
okay,
of course,
okay.
you're going to be, of course, you're going to be affected by all things because you're a being, but but at the end of the day, you're going to be able to like process how it affects you and be able to neutrally make the right decisions and make the right choices. You know,
Okay.
not being overly swayed, not being swayed at all by emotions or by anything, but just being able to see like, oh, that affected me this way, but this is this, and you can be able to process it almost like a computer, and be able to process it, weighing the pros and the cons, and try to move forward and make the best choice possible.
All right. So what can you say to me? Because, like, for example, I see what you're saying completely. Like, I'm always
Mhm.
conscious. I'm always aware of whatever type of um, generational trauma or wealth or generational let's say shared experience. Let's say that, okay, shared
I
experience.
like
So
that.
whether it's positive or negative, from our mom and dad, and I'm always trying to stay away from that because I want to try to find myself. You know what I'm saying? Um, Not so that I can pass it on to my children, but so that I can understand where mine is, so I can break the cycle. And kind of help. Try to live my own cycle and let my children live their own cycle. But my question is, how is it possible then when we're doing this, like you said, trying to find this? What was the name of it again? I forgot what you said. What you said?
Shunya,
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 Shunya.
the
Let's find
zero
this
point.
zero point. Find this zero point, this origin point. How difficult is it? And when we find it, does that completely revolutionize our world completely? Like we're like, whoa, what's going on? Because there's so many things like with dad and mom. I'm sure you remember. I'm sure you've experienced the same things. You're like, you know what? I've always been taught this. I've always been taught that. And then when I'm living life, I'm living my own life. Living my own life away from the family, living my own life in another culture, in another society. You live your life very far away, also from our family. You kind of like realize that, whoa, what's going on? This is completely different from what we grew up to. Not saying that our parents, saying didn't try to give us the best, but at the same time, did they really give us the tools to try to find ourselves? Try to find our, what was the point again, dude? I have to write it down. Sorry, what was the
The
name? The
shunya,
Shinya,
shunya,
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 shunya.
Shunya. So yeah, so
What?
to try to find our Shunya or our origin point or our neutrality point, how difficult is that? And when we find it, if we find it, because I can't, I would imagine that's a very difficult thing that for people to find. When we find our Shunya point, does do things become completely different to the point where we're confused? You know, because I would imagine. So I've been confused with some things where I'm like, you know,
Mhm.
mom, dad always told me this, blah 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 blah, and then when I found out it was different in the world, I'm like, what's going on? It was kind of like I had my, like you had that urban legend, saying demystified. Saying like, no, that's not right.
Mhm.
What I'm saying.
Right.
So
Don't go to bed with your hair wet. You're gonna be blind in the morning.
exactly, exactly. Don't watch TV.
I don't have
You
to
get
worry
square
about
eyes. You know what I'm saying?
that.
You know, don't break a mirror. And because like I know that when
Mhm.
I think about a lot of the superstitions, like for example, in most places in the world, they say, okay, if you break a mirror, you have 7 years of bad luck. But when you think about things like this, when you break a mirror, the reason why is because many years ago, a couple of centuries ago, a mirror was probably one of the most expensive things to have in your house. So one of the ways to kind of dissuade children, like, yeah, if you break a mirror, you're gonna have bad luck. You know what I'm saying? And those things are like passed down generation to generation. And one question before I ask you about this Shunya ideal. For example, I'll give you a perfect ideal. I'll give you a perfect example. Very often the Italians here, and it's one of those things that I often tell people, how I feel about it. They say, "Oh yeah, it's the uomo bianco or uomo nero." Uomo nero means the black man. Okay, there's
Mhm.
no disrespect behind it. You know what I'm saying? There's
Mhm.
no intention of racism, but it started from a place of how can I say neutrality, but then it kind of branched over to negativity and to I don't want to say racist, but let's say prejudice, so because what happened was when people worked in the mines, they usually had very, they had very, very short lifespans, and I hate to say this online, but
It's the black
they usually suffer from the black lung, or the technical name was pneumono ultramicroscopic silicovolcaniconiosis, and they used to suffer from this. And because usually, what did they used to think? Like a lot of the kids would see these guys who would go into the mines, white, or fair complexion, and they would come out in the evening and afternoon, and they were completely black, covered in soots,
lung.
everything from the coal, and they had like a lifespan of like 6 years, or 6 months, 5 months, so they used to say that, okay, if the black man, so the womanero, which literally
Mhm.
translates to black man, comes, it signifies death, and it did for those guys, and but that kind of like passed on, even indirectly in a non-offensive way, but it kind of like imprinted itself onto the society here, and don't you think that these type of things, when you're trying to look for this shunia, right, or
Mhm.
shunia,
Shunya.
shunia, yeah, when people find that out, they're like, whoa, wait a minute, you just blew my fucking mind, dude. I've been told this from my grandmother, my father, my grandfather, on both sides, my mother, my father, wow, you know what I'm saying? And you open your eyes up, but that kind of like contradicts what you grew up to, especially when we're talking about people
Mhm.
who are 20, 25, 30, 40 years old, the older we get, the more reinforced our preconceptions are, So how, working with some patients, or some clients, working with some clients like that, how do you feel, or how do they feel when they arrive to that moment of Shunaya, Shunaya,
Shunya.
Shunia, and they feel that, what I'm saying, like, wow, things are different. I've arrived to my 0 point.
Well, let me unpack. You said a lot right there, but
I'm sorry
first
about
of
that. I'm
all,
sorry about that. I usually say
first
a
of
lot.
all, like like to maintain it, shunya for your entire life, moment to moment. That's something like the legends have done, like Jesus Christ
Okay,
and
okay,
God, and Buddha and stuff like that. Maybe Eckhart Tolle, or maybe Joe
okay.
Rogan. No, I'm just joking, but
Joe,
but
Joe, you
we,
just
we,
smokes weed. Smoke
yeah,
weed every day.
we're still living a human experience no matter what. But people have moments of that, and that's what you can do. And then I think that the tool that helps you get there is meditation. And in particular, I do Kundalini yoga and meditation every day
Okay,
with our mom, and it's helping her out a lot also. But just doing that like every day, like my whole life is turned upside down. All the things are like, especially like scarcity mindset that our parents
okay,
embedded on us, is like totally dissolving away, and it's like just really stepping in the place of abundance now, and we're not even abundance. And yes, and it's happening in the physical world, but just the way I see things and the way I'm not
okay,
being desperate. I'm not having that scarcity mindset,
okay,
realizing that the world and the universe is very, very abundant, and you can have whatever you want to when you plan for it, and you apply yourself. But
okay,
I think the best tool to get to that shunya is meditation and doing breath work. 'Cause I think it gives you and this is not like some woo woo science or anything like that. Indians have been studying this stuff for thousands of years, and they did it in a very scientific way. This is their form of inner engineering, like engineering the internal self, developing
okay,
internal strength, internal calmness, and for them, this is what they did to help have that shunya for longer, consistent periods. But
okay,
going back to another point that you talked about, you can't. This is my opinion. You can't run away from anything. You have to embrace everything. Like saying
okay,
that, like, oh, I'm gonna try to not be like my dad. I'm not gonna try to not be like my mom. But what you end up doing is you become the antisocial social club. So you got to
exactly, exactly,
embrace.
exactly.
You got to embrace everything. And that's part of shunya, is
Okay,
embracing and taking in
okay,
everything, and then being able to like to have this resolution after you fully process what's going on. That's an important thing, is being able to process it properly, and then sit on it, and then be able to release it in a very relaxed manner, versus like just storing it and stuffing it, causing passive aggressiveness and whatnot, and causing stress and trauma in your body. I believe that it also that's an this is some hippy dippy woo woo science, but even more and more the Western scientific world is starting to come around and show that your body does start storing psychological traumas in your nervous system, and sometimes those manifest in your body,
We
such
pass
as
them on. We pass them on. We pass them on. Even
bad neck,
genealogy.
bad. Yeah, so
Yeah.
we pass it on, but we also, our nervous system is such an important part of how we live life, and that's our nervous system is our computer system pretty much, especially our
Okay.
spinal cord, and so that we process all the information from our parents, from their parents, and everything like that. And that's why when you do a practice like meditation, or even if you do your form of meditation, like some people love running, or some people like working
Yeah.
out. But if you
Yeah.
treat life as a meditation, and
Yeah.
I just like meditation because it's just a great tool. It's a very
Yeah.
powerful tool. It's like going to the gym, But if you work on a farm, maybe you don't need to go to a gym and lift
Okay.
weights.
Okay.
But
Okay.
if you live in a Buddhist monastery, maybe you don't need to meditate. But if you live in the city, you do. It's a powerful tool to help get you that sense of going with the flow of life, being able to have that neutralness, that equanimity in life. And.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, I think you can't take it too seriously either, because that's not the point either. And then this is my last point now, because we can go on and on forever about this, but like there's
For me, that's
levels. There's levels of like spiritual development and stuff like that.
hmm
In your first level of spiritual development, it's like whoa, you just got into the matrix, like whoa. Like, this is crazy.
you,
Everything I thought was wrong.
you got
But then
Keanu Reeves on.
yeah,
Whoa.
but Zach, but then you realize you got to kind of integrate that back with being on this planet and being on this earth. And sometimes what they call that, people start having what they call the dark night of the soul. And this is kind of like a woo woo term, but it's like when you kind of have like that existential crisis, and you like, what is life? What is this? Because you just realize that that for me, I realize this is all connected, and everything is not, I ain't gonna say an illusion, but it's all, our perception of separateness is all created in our mind. So,
Okay.
and
No,
it's
definitely.
not created in our mind from our physical mind, but also the minds of our parents and everybody around us, and in the group culture that's saying like, this is my land,
Exactly.
this is your land. Everything is connected, all time and
Exactly.
space, and even quantum physics is coming to that realization also, that all
Exactly.
time and space exist at this moment and at this place. So once you realize that, after you've been believing something else for so long, that's when you can have that existential crisis. And
Yeah.
then one of the next levels, you get even past that, where you're just like, you know what, it's all good. I can't just live my moment and just be moment to moment. They have a big Zen cone, and it's a big Zen cone, and say, what does the farmer do after he achieves enlightenment?
Yeah.
Do
Okay.
you know what the farmer does after
What
he
he's
he,
doing? He doesn't
he
keep
wakes
farming. I don't think.
he wakes up and keep on farming. He bales
Okay.
hay, do the water. So
Okay. So the
so
same thing. Same thing, right?
same thing. You
Yeah.
you you have to live your life. Just live your life
Okay.
with whatever. And I just think you can't shy away from trying to not be something. You just have to embrace exactly who you are and what you are. And I think it always comes with like honest communication with others, especially your loved ones, and with yourself, most importantly.
Okay. Okay.
So
Well, I have a question for you because, like you said before, you had that whoa moment. You had that Keanu Reeves, like, whoa. You know what I'm saying? What's
yeah.
going on? I am in the Matrix, or I was in the Matrix, like, whoa, because I had like so much
Mm.
emotional, generational baggage. My father, like, again, I'm talking about, I'm talking about our upbringing. I'm talking about our parents,
Mm.
I'm
Mhm.
going to actually exaggerate here because uh, I don't really think that, our parents were so, I don't think that their emotional baggage was so strong, but it was a factor. Let's say that. But just for
Yeah.
all intents and purposes, let's just say that it was so strong. You had that whoa moment. You're like, whoa, it's not like that. Like you said before, I mean, because not only in quantum physics, but even biologically speaking, it has been proven, that memory, not memory like, okay, you went to the supermarket. My grandfather went to the supermarket on the 15th of June, 1942, but
Mhm.
like memory of how to survive to keep the species alive because I guess over 4.7 billion years of evolution, 4.2 billion years of evolution, this is one of those things that that kept us, keeps us going now, but yeah, but what happens when, like, for example, like me, when I realized that, all of the teachings that my father taught us, even though he were, actually, I'm gonna take a side note. I remember the great footballer, Thierry Henry, the French guy, who actually even played for New York Bulls, Red Bulls. He's a coach. He's on Paramount
Fox.
Plus, etc., etc. Exactly. He's one of my favorite footballers ever. You know, what I'm saying soccer players ever. He once said that um, well, when we think about saying what happened, saying before, don't think about the glass half full or half empty, but that you have a fucking glass. That's
Hmm.
what he said. That it was mentality
Yeah.
to us, and I think that's what most parents. That's the thing that most parents go through. They're saying that for example, when we think about saying like urban areas where work or
Mm-hmm.
prosperity is not so common. Parents prefer that their children play basketball, play football, rap, because they know that they can't offer much else. Same with our parents. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, they didn't have to because we, in some way, probably because we grew up in a multicultural home, we were able to see beyond. Say outside of the box. But but the thing was is that most people are content with their parent with their children. Okay, trying to pursue a career in rap. I'm not saying that's a bad thing at all, but I'm saying that because they think that okay, that's better than I can offer them. You know what I'm saying? What the streets offer them is much worse than I can offer them, but I can't
Hmm.
offer them the time and the connection that the streets offer them. So right, going back to what I was saying before, having a glass, I think that most parents, I'm talking about myself also, having, being a parent, I find myself that I'm only working with what I have, what I'm saying? I don't have the glass half full or half empty. I have a fucking glass, you know, and I'm quite
Yeah.
sure that's what happened with our parents also, but unfortunately, sometimes we imprint, saying that glass ideal onto our children, either being half full or half empty. And that's when our children say, you know what? I want to be exactly like my father and mother. You know what I'm saying? So the glass is half full. I want to be the opposite of my father and mother. So, what I'm saying? My glass is half empty. You know what I'm saying? I want to change my destiny. In the end, we can all change our destinies. In the end, we are the ones, I believe, who can write our own stories. But the moment when we realize that, you know what? Everyone has a glass. Even our parents had a glass. Their parents had a glass. That moment
Mm-hmm.
of Shunia, as you said before, that 0 point, that origin point. When a person arrives to that, what I'm saying? Because I arrived to that maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and I'm 43. You know what I'm saying? So you have to think like it took me 41 years to get to the point where I'm like, I love my mom and dad, but you know what? Maybe everything that I was taught, maybe everything that was imprinted onto me was not for the bad, but it was imprinted onto me from them, from what they had available. You know what I'm saying? So now I want to know how can I, as a parent, how can I separate myself from what they instilled in me, always keeping the good, being cognizant of the bad, and pass onto my children, but without trying to imprint onto my children what I think, what I feel. How can I go about that? Do you think?
Well, first of all, I think the alchemist, he or she uses all things to his or her advantage.
Okay. Okay.
So if you try to push anything away, then you're not using it at all. So it's just
Okay.
like instead of like being upset at mom or dad for imprinting a scarcity mindset on it, it could be telling us like what, it is good to be money conscious because money
Yeah.
is a form of
Yeah.
energy. Like if you just
Yeah.
spending your money,
Yes, it is.
going to the strip club like Allen Iverson,
Yeah.
throwing
Just
dollar
throw it
bills
up.
away
Yes, you're
and
right.
making it rain and you broke, that's not conscious. But if you're just worried about like, oh, can I save $1 here? And you're driving all around town just to save $1 on a parking spot and
Yeah.
stuff like that,
Okay.
that's coming from a place of scarcity. And that's not beneficial either.
Okay.
You just, you take what for me, and that's what I'm learning more and more. I'm just taking the lessons my parents learned that I learned from my parents, and then just maybe just analyzing each one with that neutral mind, and then
Okay.
what I don't like, maybe I can tweak it or I just don't use it anymore. And what I do like, I just use that and I use it all the
Okay.
way. So,
But
I
what
think
about for me?
our parents definitely instill like working hard, going for it, really being a high level intellect, being and I think that's one thing our dad always pushed upon us too, which I really like, is just be mindful of the people that you hang around with, and I
Yeah,
think a lot of part of my early adulthood, I was hanging around people that weren't going anywhere, nothing against them or anything like that. But dad, even when we were young, he separated us from those kids that were drug dealers and stuff like that, because he knew that they weren't going anywhere. And it doesn't matter how bright or how shoony you are, if you hang around dudes that aren't going anywhere, you're going to be a
exactly.
product of the environment. And so, like, I mean,
Okay.
that was a blessing that my dad taught us, and I resisted that when I was in my early adulthood. But now, as I become an older adult, I'm becoming selective with who I share my energy with, because I think it's an
Okay.
important thing. And I think that was a
Yeah,
really good thing that was a really good thing that dad taught us, about being selective about who you share your energy with, because people can bring you down. And he learned that from his own lesson, because I know he used to work with a lot of people in the jazz industry that were losers, but he was carrying them. So
definitely, definitely,
so
definitely,
so,
definitely,
so
definitely.
that's
Okay,
that was a good, yeah.
yeah, but definitely what you found out was, was a positive thing from dad. And what you're saying right now, I agree with you 190%, because I feel the same way about dad, the strong points and the weak points. But who knows that those are shunya points? Who knows that from the shunya line, that that's a positive thing or a negative thing, and not necessarily a negative thing, Because also, dad, you have to
It could
remember,
be.
he was excessively towards one thing or another. You know what I'm saying? And
Well,
I don't know, for me, that transcribed onto a lot of things, a lot of ways that say I lived my life up until a few years ago.
I think if you look at it, and if we can go into our dad history and stuff like that, and it made me think about it too, because you know what, I think in all of us, and I see it, we do have a little bit of an addictive gene, and our father always try to go us against the addictive stuff. He's like, no, don't do this, but he was an addict too, and I saw that. I can remember being up at 2 o'clock in the morning, he's eating a piece of cake, and he's a type 2 diabetic,
Yeah,
because he was.
exactly, exactly.
So even though he didn't drink or do alcohol or drugs or anything, or smoke cigarettes, he was
His
still an
addiction
addict
was
in his
different.
way. So
Yeah,
so
exactly.
and that made me. I became to have a realization that, like, that, and it also with my ayahuasca journey that I went through earlier this year,
Okay.
that that is one of the things that is in our family lineage, is a little bit of addiction. And it's like, and it's learning how to, like, and the more you become still, and the more you can be able to take the moments of life, I'm realizing that I'm able to not, because for me, I realize that addiction comes from a place of FOMO, fear of missing out. If I don't do this, I'm going to
Okay.
miss
Yeah,
out. I'm
yeah.
going to miss
Definitely.
out,
We talked about that too.
and that's nothing but a scarcity mindset. And I realize that a lot of my trauma comes from a scarcity mindset, and then I
Okay.
think that comes from both our parents. 'Cause my mom was super poor, and she used to tell us,
Yeah.
and she used to tell me, and I'm sure she told you, that she used to walk like 3 miles with shit on her head just to go to the
Yeah,
market and
exactly.
sell it.
Like
And she didn't
a
sell
basket
that
like full of
shit.
fruit.
And
Yeah.
she didn't sell that shit at the market. She had to carry that shit back.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
in a way, that's kind of good. It's kind of like, what they said, like with the I think it was the Moroccans or whatever. When they went to Portugal, when they fought the Moors or whatnot, they like burn the
Okay.
boats. Like, it's
Exactly.
good to kind
Exactly.
of have
Exactly.
that. It's kind of good to have that burn the boat mentality in life. A lot of times people don't commit. So
No.
that's what that's what this teacher I listen to, called Abraham Hicks, talks about. Is like,
Okay.
instead of like finding the negative in things, try to find the positive aspects of all things. And everything has a
Okay.
positive aspect if you look closely,
Okay.
and that's what the neutral mind shows you, that everything has both a positive and a negative aspect.
Okay.
Even sometimes
But is it?
what we call the quote unquote good people, they have negative aspects.
Oh, definitely, 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 definitely. Yeah. But
Yeah.
do the do those positive aspects, or do those positive people that we consider, um, following those ideals, because it becomes very difficult to extrapolate what's good and what's bad. You know what I'm saying? We say, okay, I like this person, I like what he's saying, 90% of the things that, he says, it rings, it rings true with me, But out of that 90%, like a big portion of that, like, isn't really good, and objectively good, let's say. But do we feel that? Don't you feel that, sometimes, like, I feel dad and mom, both of them were objectively super parents, super great. And
Mhm.
I wish I could be, saying half the person that mom or dad was to my children. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I know that, saying, do I repress the negativity that, saying that
No, you
they're
shouldn't.
that they transmitted, and how do I learn to separate, saying, from how do we learn to separate from our parents what was good, objectively good, what was objectively bad, and what's subjectively good and bad from our parents.
Well, I
How do we
think
learn to
that's
do that?
you know, I think just saying good and bad and negative positive creates a
Okay.
subjective mindset.
Okay. Okay.
And this
Okay.
things
Okay.
are, and you're gonna say things are just this or that, you know. And you can look at it, man. You can say the word negative or positive, but if you put weight on negative and positive and good and bad, and throughout, and
In a negative or positive way. Exactly.
that's another programming our society has
Exactly.
embedded on
Exactly.
us is that good and bad, negative and positive. But you need both. You need balance. You need masculine and
Okay.
feminine. You need
Okay.
sun and darkness. You need it all. You need it
Yeah. Okay.
all.
Okay.
And I think if not, you create one dimensional. Your offsprings will be one dimensional, and then they
Okay.
create that sense of false positivity, like, oh, everything is good, but sometimes shit ain't good, and
Exactly.
you got to be real with it. But at the end of the day, that's what developing shunya is all about. Is like, even though things may be bad, you can still develop. You can be neutral about things and still be calm about things, and say, this too shall pass. And
Okay.
even the
All right.
good
Well.
thing, this too shall
Yeah.
pass. Anything good or
Exactly.
bad, this too shall pass. And that's the reality of thing. We're all destined for one place, and then maybe we reincarnate or whatnot. I don't know. That's beyond my pay grade. But so at the end of the
Exactly.
day, the moments are the only thing that matters, and
Okay.
that's where you develop true shunya, and that's what the
Okay.
Buddha talked about. That's what even Jesus Christ talked about. Is like
Okay.
being fully
That's what
engulfed in the present moment.
That's even what Muhammad talked
You
about
know what I mean?
also.
Mom and type
You
of
know.
being fully involved. Well, it's all like the Zydegus.
Yeah.
It's
So
all they all have the same archetypical,
yeah.
super spiritual leader. But it's
Yeah.
all the same
Exactly.
stuff.
Exactly. But we need that. We need that. Yeah, because in the end, yeah, But all right. Well, sorry. Like I said, because I'm really, really interested. I'm sure that a lot of your people are also interested in, the Kundalini,
Mm.
mindset, yoga, mindset. Like I'm also always. I hate to say. I don't like to use the word spiritual because, as we said before, using
Yeah.
particular tech or labels kind of like put you in a label society, put you part of the social the antisocial club,
Mm-hmm.
social club, and it becomes counterintuitive and oxymoronic, But I like to think about that so many ideals exist everywhere, So finding a shunya, or finding balance, inner balance. Let's even call it something that's completely neutral. So finding that inner balance, finding that 0 point, that zero line where you can go one way or the other. Um, when we arrive there, how much effect do our because again, like I said, I've been struggling, not gonna say struggling, but I've been battling, not even battling, but I've been at let's say at odds against our upbringing, And like I told you before, a couple years now that I've been, saying kind of think of like, okay, trying to separate who I am as a person and who our parents were when they were bringing us up. But I think that's still that, some of the imprint that they left is on us. And that's one of those things, like you said before, I kind of accept, what I'm saying? But how much of that should I accept? How much should I try to pass on? How much should I say, what, this is me? And how much should I say, this is me because of what was saying was passed on to me.
What That's up to you. What you're gonna. That's up to you,
Okay.
and what you're capable of accepting. But it's good that you bring an awareness to to what's going on, and I think at the end of the day, it's like you got to embrace it all, and you have to accept it all. But what you're
Okay.
gonna do? What are you gonna then? And that's the only way you're gonna be able to process whatever you need to process, and then move forward. Because if you don't appreciate what you have, you're gonna come from a place of resentment, and you're gonna bottle shit up, and it's gonna store in your subconscious, and it's gonna store in your psyche, and things just explode, or you'll implode. So
But that
you
happens
have
in
to,
most cases. That happens in most cases. So
yeah.
what's the hope for people who have this generational trauma, or let's say this we said before, generational experiences? What's the hope for those people? You know what I'm saying? Because some people are still blind to understand that maybe the way I was brought up is not who I am really. You know what I'm saying? Or I want to break this cycle. What kind of hope do we have for those people? What can those people do to try to find, what I'm saying, find this breaking of the dog which eats its own tail, or the snake which eats its own tail. In the if we think about the Greek Ouroboros ideal,
Well,
what can
I think it's communication. You know, you got to be able to have honest communication with your parents and your kids, and you know, and you know, at the end of the day, you don't know all the answers. No one knows. Our parents didn't know all the answers, and you as a
you don't
parent,
know
you
the
don't know
answer,
all the
Sway? You ain't got the answer,
answers.
Sway. Sway,
Like,
you ain't got the answers.
but the only way you can come to like deeper understanding is through is communication, like
Okay.
communication with your parents, communicate with mom. Like, you know, I talk to mom all the time. We talk about all this stuff. Sometimes I get frustrated with her, but you know, I talk to her about it. You know,
Yeah.
and then you know, you talk to Remy. You can talk to mom. You know, you need to know. Hopefully, you'll talk to Amadeus soon too. But you have to talk and listen. You know, have a conversation. It can't just be a monologue. It has to be
Okay.
it has to be a thing, and then you have to ultimately talk with yourself, you know. And I think the best way to talk and communicate with oneself is meditation and yoga.
Okay.
I'm just I'm not only the president, I'm also the client.
Okay. Perfect. No,
Not
no,
for
no.
the haircut for men,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
but
Exactly. Exactly.
for
Promote your
yoga
shit.
and
Promote
meditation,
yourself.
I'm definitely drinking the Kool-Aid there. So, but
Yeah, no,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, exactly, definitely, definitely, definitely. Promote yourself, son. No, but yeah,
no,
because no, because like I said, and so how important is it, because in the end, like I said, we've listened to our parents, we've listened to our aunts and our uncles and our grandparents, you know, whether it was direct or indirect, or what I'm saying, it was forced onto us, because as young children sometimes we're forced to listen, we're forced to follow, obey, etc., etc., etc. But when we become adults, when we start listening to that inner self, what I'm saying, how do we communicate with that inner self, do you think,
I
to
don't think
try to find this shunia, do you think, so that
I
we
don't
can
think.
start to separate ourselves? Because like you said before, and I think that's in the end, I think that's the main ideal with when we want to break the cycle. I think the most important thing is not to separate ourselves from our family, from the generations. I think it's to separate ourselves from what we learned to create our own selves, so that we can reintegrate with our past, what I'm saying, with our cousins, with our brothers, with our sisters, with our moms and fathers, what I'm saying. So we say, you know what, I learned this about us, what I'm saying. I'm
Mhm.
not taking away anything that what you did, because like I've talked, like I said, like you said, I don't talk to mom every day, but I talked to her a lot more in the past year and a half than I had, saying, in the past 20 years, what I'm saying. And you know, it, the conversations become more deep, they become more profound, and like I said, that's only because in the last year and a half, 2 years, I started to try to separate my own ideals from what I really truly feel or my reality, and what I feel that was kind of put onto me, whether it was how can I say, whether it was done on purpose or if it was inadvertent, what I'm saying.
Mhm.
And you know, and I kind of find myself that one of the main things I want to do is like say, okay, you know what, mom, you know what, Rich, my brother, you know what, Rhodesia, our sister, you know what, Albert, my cousin, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is me now. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to neglect what we learned, what was pushed onto us, but I want to say that this is me now. You know what I'm saying? It also at the other end of the spectrum for my children. Amadeus, this is me now. Remy, this is me now. How can we, not just me, but in general, how can once we try to find a sense of this constellational, this generational trauma, wealth experience, how can we reintegrate into our families, or those who were also affected by our generational effect or generational experiences?
Well, I think this that if you know if you feel like you're dealing with too much trauma yourself, it doesn't make any sense to communicate and interact with other people, because you're just going to perpetuate more drama and more trauma. So
Okay.
sometimes you do. Sometimes it's good to take that step back and work using tools. You know, not to sit there in depression, which a lot of people do, but using tools that may make you depressed in the beginning, but it's going to help give you a sense of awareness. And that's the
Okay.
key. It's all about awareness. Once you start developing true inner awareness, not bullshit superficial awareness, like,
Okay.
oh,
Okay.
my shirt is wrinkled, but like really true awareness, like, you know
Yeah.
what, it came exactly from what my father used to always say that, or that came from, I noticed that when other people talk, I'm not fully focused, or I'm not in the moment. I'm just thinking about what can I respond with. Little
Got it.
things like that. When you start really truly develop true awareness, you know, then you can come back and integrate with other people. But
Okay.
another point that you touched upon, I want to talk about, and I think that's the problem with a lot of quote unquote seekers out there, is that they're seeking, and the old Zen masters used to play with the students like this all the time
Yeah.
because they're seeking enlightenment and they're seeking shunya, but
Uh-huh.
you don't really have to seek. You are
Mhm.
you are enlightenment.
You are sure. Yeah.
You are the still point. It's just
Exactly.
everything else. It's the other commotion and all that stuff is just preventing you from truly being able
Exactly.
to step into that moment. And so
That's one of the things I understood. Exactly.
once you get rid of the distractions, then you start seeing things clearly. It's kind
Okay.
of like when
Okay.
Neo was at the end of the first Matrix, when you saw that everything is just binary digits.
It's like what?
It,
Yeah. Well,
it just
there are no bullets. There are no bullets,
yeah,
bro. Stop. There are no bullets.
exactly. There are no bullets. There is no spoon. so
Okay. All right.
yeah,
No, 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 no. Definitely. No, definitely. No, no. In fact, that was when you talked about this shunya, this 0 point. Like I said, that's something that I had zero idea about, and I never
Mhm.
heard of. Because, like I said, in your sector, in the yoga sector, in the Hindu sector, I'm very ignorant. But that was one of the ideas. That was one of the things that I was trying to search for, and that was one in searching for that. I realized that I am my 0 points. What I'm saying, everything else is saying there are layers of things that were say experiences, implications,
Yeah.
impositions, things like that, and trying to peel back those layers, saying, but not
Mhm.
throwing those things away, because like I said, I don't throw away, like you said before, and now that you said it, I actually respect it, and I really appreciate you saying that, thinking of it as negative or positive, you should think of those things as things,
Well,
those are things that
they're
help
all
build you, those are things.
they're all it's all the same at the end of the day. The layers are just the
Exactly.
same as the 0 point.
Exactly.
If you
Exactly.
really want to look at it, yeah, the layers are the same as the 0 point. It's
Exactly.
kind of like our universe. Our universe is mostly made up of space, or you want to call it
Yeah.
ether, or whatever you want to call
Yeah.
it. And this is what some people call spirit. So that's when you say you're spiritual, you're just connected to that what consists of most of the universe, 90+% of the universe. It's probably
Yeah.
even more than 90+%. And
Yeah.
and then through explorations of consciousness, you realize that it's mostly space, even in our thoughts and in our
Okay.
emotions and our sensations.
Okay.
But we all our focus and attention is always all on our sensations and our emotions
So
and stuff like that.
do you think that we fill those spaces? Do you think we fill those spaces with already learned ideals, habits, and
Of
routines?
course,
Like,
of course, of
okay,
course, of
okay,
course. Everybody does. Even like you say you're a Shunya, and you're not, right, John? I'm not. It's
no,
always a
I'm
work
not
in
there.
progress.
No, not at all.
It's
I'm
always
never
a
sure.
work in progress. But we are Shunya too, in the same sense. We're all Shunya. We all it is. It's in us. And this is
Okay,
just my belief, but my belief is that it's all in us already. But to be able to live and be, that's the highest level of spiritual development, is not, not manifesting or channeling, but being, this truly being, and that's what, like, the
okay,
Buddha talked
okay,
about. It's like,
okay,
because if you don't know the story of the Buddha, he went through years of self-torturing, doing all the strenuous yogas, fasting, all trying to find enlightenment. And then he sat under the
yeah,
Bodhi tree for 40 days, 40 nights, something like that, that same old
yeah,
mythological
yeah,
timeline,
yeah,
kind of like Noah's Ark, or like when
yeah.
Jesus went through the desert. But through those
Yeah.
40 days and 40 nights, he realized that the only thing that is going to lead to enlightenment is just being fully present in the moment, you know.
Okay, okay,
And then that's why breathwork and meditation is the best tool, because it cultivates they're just tools, but using your breath and being focused on your breath, not destroys, but it minimizes those distractions in you, in your
definitely, yeah. Because
mind, in your psyche
in
emotions.
psychology, exactly. In
Yeah.
psychology, we consider this,
Mhm.
uh, we consider this as distractions. Or, for example, if I want you to do something in particular, but you're constantly doing one particular habit or one particular
Mhm.
activity, the best way for me to stop you from doing that activity is to have you doing something else. So, like you said before, if you're trying to concentrate on trying to think about yourself, try to find yourself, to try to find your center, it's very difficult that at the same time your brain is trying to find distractions, because
Yeah, for sure.
because it can only work one, saying it can only work at once. You know what I'm saying? And
Well,
that's where that that
well,
false.
that's the problem. That's the problem with a lot of Freudian psychology and all that stuff like that. A lot of people have anxiety and depression in their mind and stuff like. Well, I can't talk about biochemical depression or
Yeah.
chemical depression,
Yes.
but I guess biochemical is the right term. But
Yeah.
it's more like anxiety in the mind and stuff like that. You can't solve anxiety problems with trying to think about it. It's just
Yeah.
going to cause
Yeah.
more
Exactly.
anxiety.
Yeah.
So
It's kind of like,
you
yeah,
got
yeah. I dislocated my shoulder, but I'm not going to think about dislocating my shoulder. 'Cause, yeah, I'm not thinking about it. I'm not thinking about it because you're just going to keep
no.
thinking about it. Yeah.
Well, I do believe that you can kind of flip the switch mentally on a lot of things, but for the most part, you need a more encompassing type of approach to help with a lot of those traumas that
Okay.
involve the nervous system. You know,
Okay.
to
And that's
help.
including. That's also including generational
Yeah,
traumas. You
yeah,
say.
and even the nervous system, they have certain
Okay.
healing patterns called somatic healing, where it's
Okay.
all about just really learning how to reset the nervous system and just really and then it comes from first just being present in awareness and
Okay.
being aware.
Well,
Awareness is the key. Awareness is the
well,
key. That's the
sorry,
key to consciousness.
sorry to interrupt you. And I'm not trying to be devil's advocate. I'm not trying to be polemic. I'm not trying to be an a hole or anything. But like you talked about, what you're talking about now. What I'm thinking is that, but plus also I'm thinking about doing it myself. So, nevertheless, of whatever goes on, you talk about your Hayabusa experience. Um,
Ayahuasca.
ayahuasca, sorry, ayahuasca experience. Sorry. Hayabusa, I think, is a brand of a car. So your ayahuasca experience. Right. So, but doesn't that kind of like shift you away from what reality is, or
It
I'm,
does,
I'm
does,
not
yeah.
clear about that. I'm not clear about that.
Yeah, I
So
think at the end of
how does shifting you away from where you are help you become more gravitated to where you are?
Well, that's
That's
why,
what I'm.
like now, like a lot, that's what's the real, like the new black in the psychological world is these like type of a type of treatment, such as not only even
Okay.
ayahuasca, these psychedelic treatment, but also ketamine and also
Okay. Yeah.
psilocybin
Yeah.
or
Psilocybin,
LSD, because
LSD,
they believe
exactly.
that they believe if you can just if you can get that little bit of separation from reality, then you can kind of start
Okay.
seeing things in a
Okay.
much more neutral way,
Yeah. Well,
instead of
because
being so
from my point of.
so not instead of being so entangled in the trauma. And so
Okay.
like
Okay. Yeah. Because definitely. Yeah.
especially with people with PTSD, they start getting on ketamine, it puts them into that really weird like K-hole, as they call it.
Yeah.
And so they don't become so attached to, like getting shot at in
Yeah.
Afghanistan or something like that.
Well,
So,
also, like
or
I don't want to get much into the medical or the chemical.
yeah, I'm not a psychologist, so
Yeah,
but this
but
is what I
yeah,
read
it
on.
creates neural networks or whatever. Yeah, but definitely
Yeah,
things that you weren't keen or you weren't accustomed to seeing before. Yeah, so definitely. So yeah, I guess I see what you're saying, that by being able to see everything, it can help you see one thing, right? Because
yeah,
whereas before, if we're dealing with a stress that we're going through right now, we're kind of focused on that one thing, even though that's not the real one thing. The real one thing is what's going on now. And when you're
yeah,
on ayahuasca or on the ketamine treatments or the LSD treatments, you're kind of seeing everything, but as one, not
yeah.
seeing one thing as everything. And that's what happens a lot of times. Yeah, I see what you're saying, though. Yeah,
Yeah, but
completely,
at the end of
completely.
the day, I think these are just tools, and I think I think people should be careful with these tools too. You know what I'm saying? Because these are very potent tools, and at the end of the day, you got to each person has to embrace reality for exactly how it is right
Okay.
here and right now. If you don't embrace reality right here and right now, you can get all these tools and have some form of escapism. But
Uh-huh.
if you're not able to integrate what you learn in your escapism and be able to deal with things on a day by day basis, you're not. This is not going to be anything sustainable.
It just becomes repressive. That's all. And things that you repress